"We want a peaceful Thanksgiving with your sister's family," my parents texted. I replied in joy. They had no idea I'd already arranged for the entire extended family to join me at my newly purchased French villa. When they saw the photos. But the text arrived while I was finalizing my holiday plans. "Honey, your father and I think it's best if you skip Thanksgiving this year. We want a quiet celebration with Emma and her family. You understand, right?" I stared at my phone, a bitter smile forming on my lips. Of course, they wanted me to skip another family gathering. Emma, my perfect younger sister with her perfect husband and perfect twins, always took priority. My name is Olivia. And at 34, I've grown accustomed to being the family afterthought. The pattern had been established early and never deviated. Emma, despite being 4 years younger, had always been the golden child. From the moment she took her first steps, which my parents documented with more enthusiasm than they'd shown for any of my milestones, it was clear that she occupied a special place in their hearts that I would never reach. Growing up, I watched Emma effortlessly collect praise for achievements that would have gone unnoticed if they'd been mine. When she brought home a B+ on a test, it was celebrated with ice cream and calls to relatives. When I brought home straight A's, it was met with a casual good job and an immediate shift of attention to whatever Emma was doing. The disparity became even more pronounced during our teenage years. Emma's high school graduation party was a lavish affair with over 100 guests, professional catering, and a hired DJ. My graduation, which occurred during summa cum laude honors, was celebrated with a family dinner at a mid-tier chain restaurant, cut short because Emma had a date that evening. College was when I first started to understand that this wasn't just about birth order or personality differences. Emma attended a prestigious private university, tuition paid in full by our parents, while I worked 3 jobs to pay my way through state school. When I was accepted to law school, my parents' response was lukewarm at best. "Law school is expensive," my mother had said. "Are you sure this is practical?" Meanwhile, Emma's decision to change her major for the 3rd time was met with supportive nods and offers to fund an additional semester. The wedding disparity was perhaps the most glaring example of their favoritism. Emma's wedding 2 years ago was a $75,000 production that our parents funded entirely. Destination bachelor and bachelorette parties, designer dress, elaborate reception at the country club, no expense spared. When I'd gotten engaged 5 years earlier, my parents had handed me a check for $2,000 and suggested we keep things simple. The engagement didn't work out, partly due to the stress of planning a wedding on a shoestring budget while working 60-hour weeks at the firm, but their relief at not having to contribute more was palpable. Even my career achievements seemed to exist in a parallel universe where they didn't matter. Making partner at one of the city's most prestigious law firms before age 35 was something most lawyers could only dream of. The financial rewards had allowed me to purchase investment properties, travel extensively, and build a substantial portfolio. But to my parents, it was just Olivia's job, something mentioned in passing while they regaled anyone who would listen about Emma's latest mommy blog post or her children's preschool activities. While Emma got the spotlight for every minor achievement, my successes were met with polite nods and quick subject changes. Even when I made partner at my law firm last year, my parents managed to turn the celebration dinner into a discussion about twins starting preschool. The partner announcement had been particularly painful. I'd worked for this moment for over a decade, sacrificing relationships, social life, and personal time to build my career. When the senior partners called me into the conference room and offered me the partnership, I'd actually cried. It represented not just financial security, but validation of all those years of grinding through impossible cases and billing more hours than seemed humanly possible. I called my parents immediately after signing the partnership agreement, barely able to contain my excitement. "Mom, I did it. I made partner." The response was tepid at best. "Oh, that's nice, honey. Listen, can I call you back? Emma's bringing the twins over and I want to finish preparing their snacks." When I finally got them to agree to a celebration dinner, I hoped for something special. Instead, they chose a restaurant Emma liked, spent the first 20 minutes discussing the twins' sleeping schedules, and when I tried to explain what partnership meant, the years of work, the financial implications, the professional recognition, my mother interrupted to share a story about something cute one of the twins had done that morning. I'd excused myself to the bathroom halfway through dinner and seriously considered leaving. But I stayed, smiled, and nodded through another hour of Emma-centric conversation, all while my partnership papers sat untouched in my briefcase, the biggest achievement of my professional life reduced to background noise. "Sure, Mom. Have a wonderful time," I typed back, my fingers steady despite the hurt churning in my stomach. What they didn't know was that their text had just confirmed my decision about the surprise I'd been planning. 8 months ago, I purchased a stunning villa in the French Riviera, a move I kept quiet from my immediate family. The property with its breathtaking Mediterranean views and spacious rooms was perfect for what I had in mind. The villa had been an impulse purchase that turned into the best decision I'd ever made. I'd been in France for a legal conference in Nice, and during a weekend break, I'd taken a drive along the coast. The real estate sign was barely visible through the olive trees, but something about the property called to me. Built in the 1920s by a French industrialist, the villa had been lovingly maintained by the same family for decades before they decided to sell. The moment I walked through the wrought iron gates and saw the Mediterranean stretching endlessly beyond the terrace gardens, I knew I had to have it. The house itself was a masterpiece of architecture: cream-colored stone walls, terracotta roof tiles, and floor-to-ceiling windows that captured every angle of natural light. Inside, the rooms flowed seamlessly from one to another, with soaring ceilings, original marble floors, and carefully preserved period details. The master suite occupied the entire third floor, with a private terrace overlooking the sea and a bathroom that felt more like a luxury spa. 8 additional bedrooms, each with its own character and view, could comfortably accommodate large groups. The kitchen was a chef's dream: restored vintage appliances alongside modern conveniences, granite countertops, and windows that opened onto herb gardens where rosemary and lavender grew wild. But it was the outdoor spaces that truly took my breath away. Multiple terraces descended toward the water, connected by stone staircases and dotted with mature olive trees and flowering vines. The infinity pool seemed to merge with the horizon, and hidden throughout the gardens were intimate seating areas perfect for quiet conversation or solitary reflection. The purchasing process had been surprisingly straightforward, helped by my legal background and the fact that the sellers appreciated my obvious love for the property. Within 6 weeks, I was the owner of what could only be described as a Mediterranean paradise. I'd furnished it slowly and carefully over the past 8 months, working with local artisans and antiquarians to find pieces that honor the villa's history while providing modern comfort. Every room told a story, from the vintage French furniture in the formal dining room to the colorful ceramics that decorated the kitchen shelves. What made the purchase even more satisfying was that I paid for it with my partnership bonus and investment returns, requiring only a manageable mortgage. Years of careful investing, combined with my legal income, had made it possible. It wasn't just a vacation home, it was a statement of independence, a place that was entirely mine, where I could create the kind of memories and traditions I'd always wanted. The irony wasn't lost on me that my parents, who had consistently undervalued my achievements, had no idea that their supposedly struggling daughter now owned one of the most beautiful properties on the French Riviera. You see, while my parents and sister lived in their small bubble, I maintained close relationships with our extended family. Aunt Marie, who taught me to bake when my mother was too busy with Emma's dance recitals. Uncle James, who attended my law school graduation when my parents chose Emma's baby shower instead. Cousins who actually remembered my birthday and celebrated my achievements. They all knew about my success, my promotions, my investments. Unlike my parents, they'd been interested in my life, my dreams, my journey. And when I mentioned hosting Thanksgiving at my new villa, they were thrilled. The relationship with my extended family had become increasingly important over the years, especially as the gap between my parents' treatment of Emma and me had widened. These relatives had watched the family dynamics play out during gatherings and quietly expressed their disapproval through increased attention to me and my achievements. Aunt Marie, my mother's older sister, had been particularly supportive. She'd been the one to teach me to cook when I was 12, after my mother declared she was too busy with Emma's activities to include me in meal preparation. Those Saturday afternoon baking sessions had become some of my most cherished childhood memories: measuring flour, learning to fold egg whites, sharing stories while cookies baked in the oven. Uncle James, my father's brother, had filled in as a surrogate parent figure during many important moments. When my parents missed my law school graduation for Emma's baby shower, Uncle James had driven 4 hours to attend the ceremony. He'd been the one cheering loudest when my name was called, and he'd taken me to an expensive dinner afterward to celebrate properly. "Your parents don't know what they're missing," he'd said that night. "But I do, and I'm proud of you." The cousins had become like siblings to me, the siblings I'd wished I had growing up. They remembered my birthday with thoughtful gifts, asked about my cases, celebrated my victories, and commiserated with my defeats. When I'd mentioned the villa purchase during a family group chat, their excitement had been immediate and genuine. "Are you serious?" Cousin Sarah had written. "You bought a house in France?" "Not just a house," I'd replied, sharing some photos. "A villa. With room for everyone." The responses had come flooding in: heart emojis, congratulations, and immediately, requests for details about visiting. It was then that the idea for Thanksgiving had crystallized. Why not gather the people who actually appreciated me in a place that would create unforgettable memories? When I'd floated the idea of hosting Thanksgiving at the villa, the response had been overwhelming. Aunts and uncles who typically spent the holiday listening to my parents' endless praise of Emma were suddenly making international travel plans. Cousins were researching flights and coordinating schedules. Even the teenagers in the family were excited about a holiday that usually meant enduring boring adult conversation. The planning had taken on a life of its own. Family members were researching activities, sharing Pinterest boards of French Thanksgiving ideas, and creating group chats dedicated to coordinating outfits for photos. The excitement was infectious, and for the first time in years, I was genuinely looking forward to a family holiday. I picked up my phone again, this time to check the group chat with the extended family. The excitement was palpable. "Aunt Marie just booked our flights. Thomas can't wait to try French cuisine. Uncle James, Sarah, and the kids are packed already. Can't believe it's still 2 weeks away. Cousin Michael got the wine tour scheduled for Friday. This beats boring hometown Thanksgiving. 23 family members had confirmed, a mix of aunts, uncles, cousins, their spouses, and children. The extended family was large and close-knit, spread across different cities but united by genuine affection for each other. Everyone except my parents and Emma's family of 4. I had arranged private tours, wine tastings, cooking classes with a local chef, and a spectacular Thanksgiving feast that would blend American tradition with French elegance. My phone buzzed again. "Ma, maybe you can come for Christmas instead, if Emma's schedule permits." I almost laughed out loud. Always conditional, always dependent on Emma's plans. I didn't bother responding. Instead, I focused on the final preparations. The villa staff had everything under control, but I wanted every detail to be perfect. The bedrooms were assigned, the activities planned, the menus carefully curated. I even arranged for a professional photographer to document our celebrations. The logistics of hosting 23 people in France had been more complex than I'd initially anticipated, but also incredibly rewarding to organize. I'd worked with a local concierge service to coordinate airport transfers, ensuring that every arriving family member would be met by a private driver and transported to the villa in comfort. The image of my relatives being whisked through the French countryside in luxury vehicles while my parents sat at home was particularly satisfying. Each bedroom had been assigned based on family dynamics and preferences. Aunt Marie and Uncle Thomas, the early risers, got the east-facing room with the sunrise view. The families with young children were placed on the second floor for easy access to the garden. The teenagers were grouped together in the converted carriage house, giving them independence while keeping them close enough for supervision. I'd hired additional staff for the week through a luxury concierge service, Chef Antoine with experience in both French and American cuisine, extra housekeeping to ensure everything remained pristine, and a bilingual activities coordinator to help manage the large group and handle any language barriers. The investment was significant, but seeing my family experience true luxury was worth every euro. The activity planning had been a labor of love. I'd arranged private tours of nearby vineyards, complete with wine tastings and education about the region's viticulture. A renowned local chef would conduct cooking classes, teaching family members to prepare traditional Provençal dishes. I'd booked a private yacht for a sunset cruise along the coast, and arranged for guided tours of historic villages and art museums. For the children, I'd organized treasure hunts through the villa's gardens, art classes with a local painter, and beach excursions with all necessary equipment provided. Even the teenagers had specialized activities, photography workshops taking advantage of the stunning scenery, and evening gatherings with local musicians who could teach them traditional French songs. The menu planning had been particularly elaborate. Working with Chef Antoine, we've created a fusion Thanksgiving feast that honored American traditions while showcasing French Riviera culinary excellence. The turkey would be prepared with herbs from the villa's garden and served alongside traditional stuffing as well as Mediterranean-style chestnut dressing. Local seafood would complement the meal, fresh oysters, bouillabaisse, and grilled fish caught that morning. The wine selection had been curated from local vineyards, with tastings scheduled throughout the week so guests could appreciate the terroir of the region. I'd also arranged for French champagne to mark special moments, and imported some American favorites for those who preferred familiar flavors. The photographer I'd hired was known for capturing lifestyle events for high-end clients. She specialized in candid family photography that looked natural while showcasing the villa's beauty. Every angle of the property would be documented, creating a visual story that would naturally find its way to social media as family members shared their experiences. The timing was perfect. While my parents planned their quiet dinner with Emma's family, I would be hosting an international celebration that would be talked about for years. The contrast couldn't have been more stark, their small, exclusive gathering versus my inclusive, luxurious extravaganza. The week before Thanksgiving, my mother called. "Olivia, honey, I hope you're not too disappointed about Thursday. It's just that Emma's twins have been so fussy lately, and you know how your father gets when there's too much chaos." The irony of her concern about chaos while I was coordinating an international gathering of 23 people wasn't lost on me. If she only knew what I was actually managing while she worried about 2 small children disrupting their peaceful meal. "Don't worry about me, Mom," I replied, watching the Mediterranean sunset from my villa's terrace. "I won't be alone." I was standing on the main terrace as I spoke, watching the villa's staff put finishing touches on the outdoor dining areas. String lights were being tested, cushions arranged on lounge furniture, and the infinity pool's lighting system calibrated to create the perfect ambience for evening photography. The scene was so beautiful it looked like something from a luxury travel magazine. "Oh, do you have plans with friends?" The surprise in her voice was almost comical. Like, I couldn't possibly have a life without their inclusion. The condescension in her tone was familiar but still stung. After 34 years, she still seemed genuinely surprised that I might have meaningful relationships and interesting plans. In her mind, I was still the secondary daughter, the one who should be grateful for whatever scraps of attention they chose to offer. Something like that, I said vaguely. Actually, I should go. I have some arrangements to finalize. Through the French doors, I could see Aunt Marie and Uncle Thomas's early arrival in the entrance hall, their excited voices carrying as they took in the villa's grandeur. Other family members would be arriving over the next 2 days, and I wanted to be present for each reunion. Arrangements? Olivia, you're not working through Thanksgiving, are you? You know how we feel about. Goodbye, Mom. Give my love to Emma and the twins. As I hung up, my Aunt Marie's car pulled into the villa's circular driveway. She and Uncle Thomas had arrived early to help with the final preparations. Watching them exclaim over the villa's beauty, I felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the Mediterranean climate. This is incredible, Olivia. Aunt Marie hugged me tight. Your parents have no idea what they're missing, do they? I shook my head, smiling. They're about to find out. Uncle Thomas whistled as he took in the view. Their loss is our gain, though I can't wait to see their faces when the photos hit social media. Neither can I admitted. Neither can I. The next few days were a whirlwind of arrivals. Cousins with their families, uncles, aunts, each arrival bringing more joy and excitement to the villa. Every room filled with laughter, every meal an impromptu celebration. This, I realized, was what family was supposed to feel like. Each arrival had been an event in itself. The first to come were Aunt Marie and Uncle Thomas, who had flown in from Chicago. Their reaction to seeing the villa for the first time was everything I'd hoped for. Aunt Marie actually gasped when she walked through the front door and saw the entrance hall with its soaring ceiling and crystal chandelier, while Uncle Thomas immediately headed for the terrace to take in the Mediterranean view. Olivia, this is incredible, Aunt Marie had said, pulling me into a tight hug. I can't believe you've been keeping this secret. No wonder you weren't worried about Thanksgiving plans. Uncle James and his family arrived next, driving down from Paris where they'd spent a few days sightseeing. His teenagers, typically glued to their phones, actually put their devices away when they saw the villa's grounds. Aunt Olivia, this place is insane, his daughter Madison had said, already planning Instagram posts that would make her friends back home wildly jealous. Cousin Sarah came with her husband and 2 young children, who immediately claimed the garden as their personal playground. Watching them run through the olive groves and hide behind ancient stone walls, I was reminded of my own childhood dreams of having space to explore and adventures to discover. The New York contingent arrived in a group, 3 cousin families who had coordinated their flights and were traveling together like a small delegation. Their excitement was infectious. They'd spent the entire flight planning which activities to prioritize and discussing how this would be the best Thanksgiving any of them had ever experienced. Even my great-aunt Ruth had made the journey from Florida, her first international trip in 15 years. At 79, she was the family matriarch, and her presence gave the gathering a sense of historical significance. I've been to a lot of Thanksgivings, she told me as I helped her settle into her ground floor suite, but this one is going to be special. I can feel it. What struck me most was how effortlessly everyone blended together. Despite coming from different cities and having varying comfort levels with international travel, the family quickly formed a cohesive, joyful group. Conversations flowed between generations, activities naturally included everyone, and there was an underlying current of appreciation for being part of something extraordinary. The teenagers gravitated toward each other but still engaged with the adults. The young children found playmates among their cousins and adopted every adult as a surrogate aunt or uncle. The middle generation worked together on meal preparations and activity coordination, while the older family members shared stories and wisdom from comfortable seats with the best views. It was a stark contrast to typical family gatherings back home, where conversations often felt forced and activities were planned around Emma's children's schedules and preferences. Here, the dynamic was organic and inclusive. Everyone contributed something, whether it was helping with meals, organizing games, sharing travel stories, or simply adding to the atmosphere of celebration. The villa itself seemed designed for this kind of gathering. The multiple terraces allowed for intimate conversations and larger group activities. The spacious kitchen invited collaborative cooking, while the formal dining room could accommodate everyone for proper meals. The garden provided space for children to play while adults could still supervise and engage. Most importantly, I felt appreciated and valued in a way that had been missing from family interactions for years. My relatives weren't just grateful for the luxury accommodations and exotic location, they were genuinely interested in my life, my work, my perspectives. Conversations weren't constantly redirected to Emma's achievements or her children's milestones. Instead, I found myself at the center of discussions about law, travel, investment, and life experiences. The evening before Thanksgiving has everyone gathered on the terrace for a welcome dinner. I raised my glass to family, I said, looking at the faces of people who had chosen to love and support me unconditionally. The ones who show up. That welcome dinner was perhaps the most emotional moment of the entire week. As I looked around the table at faces illuminated by candlelight and the soft glow of string lights, I realized this was what I'd been missing my entire life. This was what family was supposed to feel like: supportive, inclusive, celebratory, and genuine. The dinner itself was a preview of what was to come. Chef Antoine had prepared a selection of French and Mediterranean dishes that showcased local ingredients and traditional cooking methods. The presentation was elegant but not pretentious, and the flavors were a revelation to family members who had never experienced authentic French cuisine. But more than the food, it was the conversation and atmosphere that made the evening special. Stories were shared, jokes were told, plans were made for the coming days. There was none of the tension or tiptoeing around sensitive subjects that characterized gatherings with my immediate family. Instead, there was easy laughter, genuine interest in each other's lives, and a palpable sense of excitement about the days ahead. When I raised my glass and offered that toast, the response was immediate and heartfelt. 23 glasses rose in unison, and the chorus of voices responding to family and to Olivia brought tears to my eyes. These people had traveled thousands of miles to be here, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. They valued my presence in their lives and wanted to create beautiful memories together. 23 glasses clinked in response, and I knew that tomorrow would be unforgettable, not just for us, but for those who had chosen to exclude themselves from this gathering. Little did my parents know their peaceful Thanksgiving was about to become a lot less peaceful when they saw what they'd missed. Thanksgiving morning at the villa was everything I'd imagined and more. The scent of freshly baked croissants mingled with traditional turkey aromatics. As our private chef balanced French cuisine with American tradition, children's laughter echoed through the marble halls as my younger cousins played hide and seek among the antique furniture. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Happy Thanksgiving? Mom wanted me to check if you're doing okay by yourself. We could FaceTime later if you're lonely." I glanced around at my bustling villa. Aunt Marie and cousin Sarah were arranging flowers in the dining room. Their animated discussion about table settings punctuated by frequent laughter. Uncle James was teaching the teenagers how to play pool in the garden, while other family members were either helping in the kitchen or exploring the village. Lonely? I hadn't felt disconnected in years, thanks, but I'm quite busy actually. Enjoy your quiet celebration, I replied, adding a smiley face for good measure. The photographer I'd hired arrived mid-morning, capturing candid moments of genuine family joy. Every shot was perfect. The sunlit terrace overlooking the Mediterranean, cousins sharing stories over wine, children playing in the manicured gardens, and the elaborate feast being prepared in the gourmet kitchen. "These photos are magazine-worthy," the photographer commented, showing me some preliminary shots. "The lighting, the location, the genuine happiness on everyone's faces, it's magical." Around noon, my phone rang. It was Mom. "Olivia, are you sure you don't want to join us for dessert later? Emma's making her famous pumpkin pie." I stepped onto my private balcony, watching Uncle James teach my youngest cousin how to properly throw a pool ball. "Actually, Mom, I'm in the middle of hosting lunch. Can I call you back?" Hosting. But I thought. The sound of children's laughter and animated conversation must have carried through the phone because she paused. "Where are you exactly?" "France," I replied simply. "The French Riviera, to be specific. I bought a villa here 8 months ago." The silence on the other end was deafening. "You bought a villa in France?" Her voice had risen an octave. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Why would I? You've made it clear that my life isn't a priority. Besides, I didn't want to disturb your peaceful Thanksgiving plans." More silence then. "Who are you hosting?" "Oh, just the family. Aunt Marie and Uncle Thomas, Uncle James and his crew, all the cousins and their kids, everyone except you, Dad and Emma. Actually, they've been here all week. We've done wine tastings, cooking classes, toured the villages. It's been wonderful." I could practically hear her mind racing, calculating all the family members who have chosen my celebration over their usual Thanksgiving plans. "All week," she sputtered. But they always come to our house for Thanksgiving. Things change, Mom. Sometimes people prefer to be where they're genuinely wanted." "That's not fair, Olivia. We just wanted a quiet." "I need to go, Mom. The photographer wants to get some group shots before lunch, and Chef Antoine is about to serve the first course." I ended the call and turned to find Aunt Marie standing in the doorway, a knowing smile on her face. "Let me guess," she said. "Catherine finally realized what she's missing." I nodded, accepting her warm hug. "She did." "Good," Aunt Marie said firmly. "Maybe next time they'll think twice before excluding you." The rest of the afternoon was a feast for all senses. Chef Antoine outdid himself with a menu that married traditional Thanksgiving dishes with French Riviera haute cuisine. The turkey was perfectly cooked, accompanied by both classic stuffing and Mediterranean delicacies. The wine flowed freely, each course paired with selections from nearby vineyards. As we gathered around the long table on the terrace, the setting sun painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, I couldn't help but feel grateful. Not for my parents' exclusion, but for the reminder it had given me about what true family means. My phone had been buzzing constantly. Texts from Emma, more calls from Mom, even one from Dad, but I ignored them all. Instead, I focused on the moment. Uncle James telling embarrassing stories about his college days, cousins planning tomorrow's adventures, children sneaking extra desserts when their parents weren't looking. The photographer captured everything. Each click of his camera preserving memories of what would become our new tradition. Because looking at the joy around me, I knew this wouldn't be a one-time event. This was the beginning of something special. As the evening wound down, I finally checked my phone. Among the missed calls and texts was a notification that Emma had been trying to add me to her Instagram close friends list, something she'd never done before. I smiled, knowing what was coming. Tomorrow, when the photographer's pictures started appearing on social media, when the extended family began sharing their stories and photos of our magnificent French Thanksgiving, my parents would truly understand what their desire for peace and quiet had cost them. But that was tomorrow's drama. Tonight, I had a family to celebrate with. One that had chosen to be here. Chosen to include rather than exclude. Chosen to create memories together in this beautiful place. And that was something to be truly thankful for. The day after Thanksgiving, I woke up to the sound of waves and excited chatter from the garden. Through my balcony doors, I could see several cousins already enjoying breakfast on the terrace while the children chased each other around the fountain. My phone had exploded overnight. The photographer had delivered the first batch of photos, and as planned, everyone had started sharing them on social media. The images were stunning. Sunset dinner on the terrace, children playing in the Mediterranean garden, elegant table settings with a sea as backdrop, and countless candid shots of genuine family joy. Aunt Marie had posted an album titled A Thanksgiving to Remember with a caption that read, "When one door closes, another opens in the French Riviera." Thank you, Olivia, for showing us what family celebrations should feel like. The likes and comments were pouring in, including from my parents' social circle. Their country club friends, church group, and neighbors were all commenting on how magnificent everything looked, asking why Catherine and Robert weren't there, wondering about the beautiful villa. Emma called first. "Why didn't you tell me?" She demanded, her voice a mix of anger and envy. "A villa in France, the whole family there. Mom's having a meltdown." "Tell you?" I replied calmly, watching the morning sun sparkle on the water. "Like, you tell me about your family gatherings. Like, you told me about the summer barbecue last month or the twins' birthday party. That's different. Those were small." "No, Emma. It's not different. You and Mom and Dad created your little exclusive circle, and that's fine. I created something better." I could hear one of the twins crying in the background. Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. "Mom's devastated. All her friends are asking questions. The Hendersons even canceled their Christmas dinner with us to accept your invitation to New Year's here. I hadn't even announced my New Year's plans yet, but apparently, the family had done it for me." "Good. Well," I said, "I guess Mom got the peaceful holiday she wanted. How was it?" Emma was quiet for a moment. "Boring," she finally admitted. "Dad fell asleep watching football. The twins were cranky, and Mom kept checking her phone every 5 minutes after your call. It wasn't like Thanksgiving should be." "No," I agreed. "It wasn't." After hanging up, I joined the family for breakfast. Uncle James was organizing a boat tour for the afternoon. While Aunt Marie and Cousin Sarah were planning a trip to the local markets, the kids were debating between the beach and the pool, and someone was suggesting a picnic in the vineyard. Then my father called. "Princess," he started using his negotiating voice. The one he used to use when he wanted me to give up my plans for Emma's sake. "Your mother and I have been talking." "Dad, I'm actually heading out for a boat tour with the family. Can this wait?" "That's what we want to discuss. Family, unity. Your mother is very upset about all this." I watched my real family getting ready for their day, laughing and planning together. "I'm sure she is, Dad. But you know what? I was upset too. Every time you excluded me, every time my achievements were overlooked, every time Emma's needs came first. The difference is I did something positive with that feeling. But buying a villa, hosting Thanksgiving without telling us. Like you planned holidays without telling me, it doesn't feel good, does it?" He was quiet for a moment. "No." He finally said, "It doesn't. Enjoy your peaceful weekend, Dad. I need to go. Uncle James is waiting." The next few days were a blur of activities, laughter, and memory-making. More photos appeared on social media. Our boat tour along the coast, wine tasting at a historic vineyard, cooking lessons with Chef Antoine, sunset dinners in the village. My parents' phones kept ringing with friends asking about the French villa they'd never seen, the family gathering they'd missed, the daughter they'd apparently underestimated. A week later, as the family was preparing to depart, Aunt Marie hugged me tight. "You know, they'll try to invite themselves for Christmas," she said. I nodded. "I know. But Christmas is already planned. I'm taking everyone to my chalet in the Swiss Alps." She pulled back, eyes wide. "You have a chalet too?" "Bought it last spring," I grinned. "I think it's time for a new holiday tradition, don't you?" As I waved goodbye to the last departing family members, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Honey, about Christmas, your father and I have been thinking." I left it unread. Let them think. Let them wonder. Let them finally understand what it feels like to be on the outside looking in. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about creating something so wonderful that those who excluded you can only watch and regret their choices. And as I stood on my terrace watching the Mediterranean sunset and planning Christmas in Switzerland, I knew I'd never have to spend another holiday feeling unwanted or overlooked again. I built my own traditions with family who chose to be there in places that took their breath away, and that was worth more than any peaceful, quiet dinner my parents could ever plan without me.